Arsinoe IV was the youngest daughter of Ptolemy XII Orleans queen and co-ruler of Egypt from 48 BC to 47 BC, making her one of the last members of the Ptolemaic dynasty of ancient Egypt. Arsinoe IV was the half-sister of Cleopatra VII and Ptolemy XIII, sharing a father, but having a different mother. History. When Ptolemy XII died in 51 BC, he left his children, Ptolemy and Cleopatra, as joint rulers of Egypt. But her brother soon dethroned Cleopatra and forced her to flee from Alexandria. When Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BC and sided with Cleopatra's faction, Arsinoe escaped from the capital with her mentor, the eunuch Ganymedes, and joined the Egyptian army which, under Achaeus, was besieging Alexandria. Achaeus then assumed the title of pharaoh. When Achaeus and Ganymedes clashed, Arsinoe had Achaeus executed and Ganymedes placed in command of the army. Ganymedes initially enjoyed some success against the Romans, but the leading Egyptian officers were soon dissatisfied with him. Under a pretext of wanting peace, they negotiated with Caesar to exchange Arsinoe for Ptolemy XIII, who was subsequently released. However, Ptolemy continued the war until the Romans received reinforcements and inflicted a decisive defeat upon the Egyptians. Captive, Arsinoe was then transported to Rome, where in 46 BC she was forced to appear in Caesar's triumph. Despite the custom of strangling prominent prisoners in triumphs when the festivities were at an end, Caesar was pressured to spare Arsinoe and granted her sanctuary at the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus. Arsinoe lived in the temple for a few years, always keeping a watchful eye on her sister Cleopatra, who perceived Arsinoe as a threat to her power. In 41 BC, at Cleopatra's instigation, Mark Antony ordered Arsinoe executed on the steps of the temple, a gross violation of the temple sanctuary and an act which scandalized Rome. The eunuch priest who had welcomed Arsinoe on her arrival at the temple as queen was only pardoned when an embassy from Ephesus made a petition to Cleopatra, her tomb at Ephesus. In the 1990s, an octagonal monument situated in the center of Ephesus was proposed by Jacopo Robusti of the Austrian Academy of Sciences to be the tomb of Arsinoe. Although no inscription remains on the tomb, it can be dated to between 50 to 20 BC. In 1926, a female body estimated at 15 to 20 years old was found in the burial chamber. Thur's proposed identification of the skeleton was based on the shape of the tomb, the carbon dating of the bones, the gender of the skeleton, and the age of the young woman at death. It is also claimed that the tomb contains Egyptian motifs, such as papyri bundle, columns. Others remained less certain regarding the identification, for example, pointing out that she would have been between 8 and 14 at the time of Caesar's arrival in Alexandria, too young for someone to have led an uprising against Rome. Her actions in the brief war that followed had suggested she was older than that. As a result of the earlier assumption that she was older, her date of birth was usually placed between 68 BC and 62 BC, which would have made it impossible for her to be the woman buried in the octagon. The date of Arsinoe's birth is unknown, however, and the possibility remains that she was in fact younger than had previously been assumed, and that she may just have been a figurehead rather than an active participant in the war. A writer from the Times described the identification of the skeleton as a triumph of conjecture over certainty. The skull was lost in Germany during World War II. However, Jacopo examined the old notes and photographs of the now missing skull, and concluded that it shows signs of an admixture of African and Egyptian ancestry mixed with classical Grecian features, despite the fact that Boas, Gravely, Bernard and Leonard and others have demonstrated that skull measurements are not a reliable indicator of race. If the monument is the tomb of Arsinoe, she would be the only member of the Ptolemaic dynasty whose remains have been recovered. Forensic, archaeological analysis of the origins of the skeleton and tomb is ongoing. Ancestry.